Yeah, I think it's the speed that's the problem. I think it's the speed because I think most people have said, or celebrities have said things that are a little bit racist, and then they issue their apology and they're just fine. They're able to bounce back. Whereas I think it all happened overnight for him. He got cancelled so quickly.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's podcast. I am DJ Goldenchild, the founder of the Otto brand, and I believe this is episode 5, and we are still going. Remember to like and subscribe if you are feeling this on all our social media platforms. I'm going to hand you over to the guy, the host, Al.
Yeah, it's Al here, self-confessed audio geek, and we are doing episode 5 in association with SETT Surf. The SETT Surf provide mineral-based sunscreen, and why is that important, do you ask? That is because they intentionally don't use all those horrible, nasty chemicals that harm your skin. They make sure that what their mineral-based sunscreen doesn't harm ocean life, and they make sure that it's suitable for all skin types, including your children. So for athletes who train outdoors, it's particularly good for you because obviously it doesn't run into your eyes. And if you want to find out some more information about that, go and check them out. Their website is www.settsurf.com. That's SETTSURF.com. Or go and check them out on their socials. They've got the same social handle for everything, and it's at SETT Surf. That's at SETTSURF. Right, okay, so I'm here with Chris. Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
Also joining me is Danny. Danny, how are you?
Thank you.
And we also have a guest, so make some noise for Sadé, who's debuting on our pod today. Hello, Sadé.
Sadé.
Hey, how are you?
All good. So, episode 4, the episode before what we did today, we talked about the curse of genius. We talked about Kanye West and Amy Winehouse and how genius is so clearly linked to things like addiction and mental health issues. We talked about Wiley, who unfortunately made some really, really awful tweets, and a lot's happened with him since then. David Wiley, aka Sideman, has also had his made the news for different purposes, and Dawn Butler, an MP, a black MP, has made the news for separate issues as well. So, who wants to kick us off with those new bits of news?
Well, I'll kick us off, Al, because obviously the Wiley thing is what's concerned me a little bit. Now, obviously, what Wiley said, I don't condone. I think what he done was absolutely wrong. I do understand it may have come from a place of frustration with certain things, but he generalized the whole community and race, which I thought was wrong. But the way he has been treated by some social media platforms, I think is a little bit unfair and unjust. Now, getting banned.
Would you argue all social media platforms, really?
Yeah, I
Not
think
some.
Yeah,
pretty much all of them.
I think it's unjust and unfair. I think getting banned from Twitter is fair enough. That is their policy. They've always done it. Now, the quickness of how he's been banned, I question, because there was other people like Katie Hopkins, Tommy Robinson, the president of the United States, who say very borderline and racist stuff and have not had the same heat.
Well, not borderline. He said in 2015, Mexicans are rapists and bring crime and drugs to the US.
So there you go.
Not so much borderline, but exactly racist.
So, right, this is the thing. And I'm not, before everyone starts saying, you guys, we're always saying about colour, I'm not saying it because Wiley's black. I'm saying it maybe because it's who he is and where he fits in the class system. Now, Donald Trump is not going to get banned from anywhere because he's the most powerful man in the world. That's not fair. But the one that upsets me the most and makes me feel uncomfortable is how he's been kicked off of YouTube. Like, for me, I'm like, he didn't do anything on that platform to warrant getting banned. Then getting banned from TikTok as well. And I'm thinking, like, these are US-run companies. So, but then your president can say what he wants and you're not going to ban him. Like, I don't know. All I'm trying to say is keep the same energy up, innit? Like when someone else messes up, just keep the same energy for everyone. That's where I want to start on that bit there. I just feel that's a little bit unfair doing that to him.
I totally agree with you on that. And I think some of the points he's made about who he was talking about, maybe it just goes to show the power that they have, that of like the rapidness of what's happened to him. I heard I was reading today that they want to strip him of his MBE as well, and I think that's a little bit out of order, seeing as he earned that and deserved it and got it. Why should they strip it? I think they're trying to make a what's the word? They're trying to make an example out of him, and I don't think that's fair. Especially when there's other people in the world that are a lot worse. But I don't agree with anything he said. But I don't think he should have got the treatment he's got.
Well, some will argue that some of the points he raised in his little rant is actually correct. Some are arguing that. Like, no one agrees with.
Because he said he said that his biggest error was generalizing a race of people, and actually what he should have said and what he meant was it was the Jewish community within the music industry of where he's been particularly not been treated well, and that was his argument. And he said it himself, I probably should have generalized an entire race for that. And I think you've got a point there, Greg, in the sense of if he himself has said that the Jewish community who own large corporations within the music industry, if he has fallen foul of them and been removed from pretty much every social media platform there is that quickly, I think, I can't argue against his point being made true, really.
But it's just the speed of how it's happened, though. It's the speed.
Yeah, I think it's the speed that's the problem. I think it's the speed because I think most people have said, well, celebrities have said things that are a little bit racist, and then they issue their apology and they're just fine. They're able to bounce back. Whereas I think it all happened overnight for him. He got cancelled so quickly that there was, even though he did say, my bad, I shouldn't have generalised, he was kind of ignored and it's still gone on and it's still going on, which I think is quite weird how quickly they've responded. Whereas, like you said, Greg, other people have gotten away with it for a lot longer and done a lot more.
And that's the issue. I mean, we talked about this. I think I might have mentioned it on episode 4, and I said I believe that he was the scapegoat for Black Lives Matter. I do believe that for a long period of time, people were getting fed up of seeing it. People were being fed up of being asked to challenge their own white privilege. People were being fed up of seeing Black people campaigning. And there was an outcry for the first Black person that was gonna do something silly.
Yeah, 100%.
And that person was gonna get it. Was gonna get all of that frustration from those people who aren't happy with the Black Lives Matter movement, and that person would get the full force of the brunt. And unfortunately for him, he attacked what he claims himself is quite a powerful community. So unfortunately for him, he's fallen foul of that. And I think all that frustration around the Black Lives Matter movement has prompted his, so for example, we talk about Katie Hopkins. She's only now in 2020 been banned from Twitter. Only now. There are a catalogue of misdemeanors that she's had, from, poking fun at Black Lives Matter movement to belittling Stormzy when he talked about Britain being racist, from inciting racial hatred herself. When the Manchester bombs happened, she tweeted something about finding a final solution to deal with the Muslim problem and Muslim all this sort of stuff.
Bro,
and it's
she's
only
racist.
In 2020 she's now lost her ability to tweet on Twitter, whereas Wiley lost it in a record of like 4 days.
Bro, and the funny thing is as well, I feel like the UK social media network accept her. They just tolerate her. They tolerate Katie Hopkins. Like she just gets a pass. Do you know what I mean? Like no one has come out and agreed with what Wiley has said. But I think there's a lot of people like lifting their heads up, like, raw, that was quick. Like, boy, they Usain Bolted him out of there. Do you know what I mean? Like, Chris, what are you saying?
And undercover as well, because no one really noticed it.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I have to kind of question, since when was Wiley that influential? Like, no one really, everyone, when he goes on his little rants, people just say, oh, mental health, or they say some kind of label, or he's having some kind of breakdown, someone go check on him, and most of the time people dismiss what he says. So I'm wondering why now this one caught so much attention so quickly.
So yeah, so Chris, what do you? So where do you sit with this, Chris? Do you think he's the scapegoat for a lot of people's frustrations, or it's justified having him?
Right. If I'm honest,
banned?
like if you look at what he's done objectively and you compare it to a similar instance from similar, high level profile celebrities or whatever, like there is definitely double standards there. I think as a society, we definitely have less tolerance for people that aren't white being racist than white people being racist, and that's probably evident in everything. Like Donald Trump does it and go, oh, he's mad or he's stupid, and you go, no, hang on, he's racist. Like that's it. Like it's the language that people use to describe him. Katie Hopkins, like people will describe her as like a bitch and the rest of it, or like stuck up middle class, but they won't necessarily. They'll say she's racist, but that's not the first thing that comes to mind. And obviously with Wiley, like he's very well known for getting up in his feelings and going on rants. Not to this extent, but he's always always done it, hasn't he? Like it's not always been this topic, but whether he's picking a fight with Dizzee Rascal or he's having a go at Stormzy, to try and create some clout for an album which he still hasn't dropped. Like he's always been a little bit active like that, but this is the first time he's really gone at someone, and he has gone too far. Like whether he actually means it or not, or whether he said what he meant, I don't know. But what he said was outrageous, and if you're going to deal with it as a standalone incident, then yeah, he does deserve to be punished for it. But being banned from everything when he hasn't used those platforms, does kind of be like, well, are all these platforms in cahoot? Like, are they all being run by the same people? Which kind of goes, like Greg said, with what he was saying. Like, so they're being run by the same people. Just have the same people been offended and had a word with their mate and gone, listen, shut him down, so he can't make any money.
Actually, he also has dropped his album. It actually came out on the 22nd of June. It's on Spotify. He's not been cancelled from Spotify yet.
But Spotify is Swedish though, I think, if I'm correct.
Oh, is it?
So,
yeah, but YouTube's American. Twitter's American. They still.
It's owned by Facebook.
But his album has not done numbers, has it? This is it. It's not done numbers. Like he was reaching for the longest time. The whole Stormzy thing, he was trying to create clout for that. He was like, 500,000 likes, and I'll drop this track or whatever, and he just wasn't getting it. So he's just gone back into himself, and he does clearly need some help, and he doesn't seem like the sort of person that's going to take someone calling him up and going, "Look, Wiley, come on, man, settle down. What is this? What is this? Don't do that."
He's dropped 2 albums very close together. Because he dropped The Godfather 3, which is one I heard, which I didn't really enjoy. That was very grime. That dropped on the 5th of June, and then the other one's sort of gone under the radar, which was Bosie Gang, which dropped on June 22nd, which I didn't even know about. But I'll have a listen to that later.
There's definitely, like you said, Greg, there's definitely class standards. Like he is being treated differently. It'd be interesting to see what he says when he's not banned, how he conducts himself, because he does not have an obligation, not just to himself but to his family and to the scene as well. Like there is a large percentage of the population that will see how he's acting and will stereotype and say that that's what all grime artists are like.
Chris,
and
that's a great point you just made.
Yeah,
that's a great point you just made. He definitely has a responsibility to.
You can't say you're the godfather of grime and then be acting like that. That's like acknowledging you're the captain of a team and then just going into 2 foot in someone in the second minute and getting yourself red carded. Like, regardless of how you feel, you've got an obligation to sort of conduct yourself in a certain way. I'm not saying you've got to kiss ass, but like, be smart about it. Nothing about what he did was smart.
Angle on it. But his angle on it is, I've sacrificed myself so you lot can see what really is happening in this industry. That's his angle. His angle is, I went that far to sacrifice myself so you lot could see what I'm talking about.
He's not
No,
He's martyring
Yeah,
himself.
He's not forcing change. That presumably his angle is, this is what I think is going on. I think these people are controlling things, and I've been spun or whatever. Like, I want to change it for me and other people. What he's done has not affected change in any of that. All it's done is taken the attention away from his angle and put it all on him.
Well,
What he's done has not worked.
Well, let's see how strong the scene is, in it, because I was saying to my brothers and sisters yesterday that if I was in this situation, there's a positive out of every negative. So I'd be thinking, all right, I'm going to start my own video platform then. Now, if the scene are all behind him, why doesn't he launch his own sort of version of YouTube and see what happens? Because YouTube have no competition.
But let's be honest. The scene is still a business. Then they're still not that loyal. Like, they come up all wicked and bad, and Stormzy still goes and does pop tracks with Ed Sheeran, and AJ Tracy has gone and started doing, God knows what he's doing. But do you know what I mean? Like, they're all going off and making money doing things that they clearly weren't coming up doing.
That's commercially viable. They all do it.
We've seen this. We've seen this with Tidal, haven't we? So I remember when I first got Tidal, I thought, bruv, this is a dead platform. It's not really what I'm used to with Spotify, because I was one of the early adopters of Spotify, because back in the day you had to have an invite, and it's my cousin sent me an invite to use it. You know, that's what it was back in the day, so I've always used it. And then when I got Tidal, I got it purely for the Kanye West album that came out, The Life of Pablo, and I just wasn't impressed with it. But then when you look back at it, you think, actually, this is a platform created by and funded by Jay-Z, Beyonce, and a lot of other black artists to challenge this sort of thing. And it's only really occurred to me now, looking back at it, you know, when we talk about this concept of promoting black businesses and being, you know, that sort of thing, that's probably the opportunity to do it, really. But I think Tidal are doing well anyway.
Well, Jay-Z's had to put his album on Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, but to see another space, another platform for another video/audio platform, I think you would struggle. I think you'd struggle doing that now. But I see your point, though.
Yeah, but YouTube are unchallenged, bruv. Normally, there's room for two like rivals, in it. That's always been the case. But YouTube are,
they're unchallenged because the people that will produce the content will be encouraged to be with YouTube. So ultimately, if you start a new platform, you know you're gonna have to monetize those videos.
Yeah.
Can you afford, with all the ads, to monetize a brand new platform? And you've got to expect people that are doing, you know, like KSI is a good example.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
That guy, it's not impossible, but this is what I'm saying. That guy does average 3-4 million views a video.
Yeah, he does numbers.
Any day he drops.
Yeah, he does do numbers.
Any day he drops, right? So if you scale that down, that's probably a couple £100,000 worth of revenue that he's getting per video, you know. And if you really want to compete with those people, that's where the ad space is. How are you going to provide? You're right, it's not impossible, but I don't see someone like Wiley having the nous to do that.
I agree.
It's a hard job.
I just don't see where he's getting that capital from. Don't really know his bank account, but I wonder, because like you said, Jay-Z did it, but he did it at the height of his career, where he had lots of millions already sitting in the bank, a good reputation, friends in high places.
Yeah, maybe that's different.
Wiley's gone and just like annoyed everyone, so then he can't then say, "Oh yeah, hey, come support me."
But I think that comes back to what Wayne and Al have always told me, like, protect your brand. Because if Wiley would have conducted himself a lot better, he would have had them connections in that. Like Chris said, he says he's the godfather of grime and whatever, but what sort of networking have you done to progress the scene forward? Like, he should be our version of Jay-Z. Like, he should be able to say...
And it's not even about being clean, is it? Because let's be honest, before music, Jay-Z had money. He had money. He was probably richer than percentage, like in terms of outgoings than he was in the first 5 years of making music.
But that's growth, though, isn't it? Like, you got to grow. Like, Jay-Z has grown into a businessman. Like, that's what Wiley should have. Wiley should have been exactly the same as that. But I don't think there's anyone in the UK scene that is like that. Like, I just feel.
But I think it's because I think then we start hitting on really different areas here, because a lot of people would argue the black men and women in the music industry in the UK, there aren't really many that stretch beyond our scene. You know, we're clutching at straws here. We're talking about sort of Craig David here, aren't we? Really, I'd have to check and see who our actually most successful black import is. But you know, the black men and women in the industry in the UK, you know, barring the likes of Dizzee Rascal, aren't really making that reach internationally anyway.
It'd probably be Adele,
So it's a tricky one.
It'd probably be Adele.
I agree.
Or Ed
I
Sheeran.
think at the moment it's probably Stormzy. Stormzy's probably definitely
Yeah, Stormzy. So yeah,
racking in those M's.
Stormzy. Yeah, exactly. Stormzy would be the closest one for us at the moment. As females go, maybe Ella May, possibly, who's clearly made the jump to the other side of the world successfully.
Or it'll be Adele.
Adele, yeah. The thing is,
but I mean in black and white.
Okay.
Sorry, I mean in black
But
men
Stormzy's-
and black women.
Stormzy's just starting his career. Like, he's nowhere close to being even considered a legend yet. He needs to have at least another 5 years of being consistent with stuff before we can start putting him in that bracket. If anybody has the potential to do it, if anybody has the potential to do it, I think it could be Stormzy.
I don't think I can say that because he's already done things that no one else has done. So I would say that he's already he's competing with himself at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's approaching that status, definitely. And
He had the potential.
I think you're right in that respect.
He had the potential. Sorry, Dan. What did
But
you
I
say?
think
I was going to say he is climbing very quickly, and the things that he is doing and the stuff that he's doing for young children, I think he's going to be put up there. And the fact that he, when Jay-Z was meant to be on London Town with him and Ed Sheeran, and he said, "Oh, Jay-Z, this isn't the right track for you." He's clearly on JD's radar, so I think there's going to be some collaboration, and I do think he's going to make more collabs with in the US. Definitely, I think
he just gets it. He just gets it. I saw him. He did like an interview with Kevin Hart and Ice Cube. I can't remember for what reason. I can't remember why I saw it, but
it was about the Jay-Z thing. He spoke about the Jay-Z.
Yeah, and that was it. Like, and he just obviously you could see he was a little bit starstruck. Like, it's Ice Cube, man, come on. But he still conducted him. He was still like himself. You could tell enough about from where you've seen him. Like, and you could tell that Ice Cube maybe didn't like everything that he did, but he was like, all right, yeah, this kid's all right. Like, he just seems to have that ability to just be himself, no matter what circumstance he's in. I think that's why people relate to him so well, and that's probably why he's so successful.
The big thing with Stormzy now is
likability. Like, I think a lot of people do like him. He's very
but he's got to keep that clean at the moment. Unfortunately, he can't afford to mess up. Like he
already has. He already has messed up. Maya Jama already messed up.
Yeah, that is a bit of a faux pas, to be fair.
That's a fail.
Listen, no one knows what's going on there, bro. You know Gravy, you of all people should know that. When people are looking from the outside in, and the people are saying, "No, look at you, not doing what you should be doing."
Yeah, fair enough.
And there's always a story behind the story. Bro.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Do you know what I mean?
But one thing I'll say though, what I'll give Wiley, and it sort of leads me on to the next point out, was Wiley, no matter if you agree with him or not, he believes what he is doing is right. Now, the reason why I say that is now going on to Sideman, I'll let you fill us in on that. Like, he believes what he done was right, and that's why he's left the BBC.
So I would like Sadé's take on this because, luckily for Sadé, she's significantly younger than us. So she will have a very different sort of view than what some of us might have here. I feel like, so the context here is there was a news report, I think in BBC Bristol or something.
Yeah, it's Bristol.
No, it was something that happened in Bristol about a young man who was racially aggravated attack. The BBC reported on it. They used the N-word to highlight the severity of the attack and the words that were used. Now, what's unbeknownst to most people, and probably known to most people who read about it, is the family and the victim himself requested that the full extent of the attack and the words used were to be used in the report so they could explain the severity of what happened. The BBC took that into account, but made their own independent choice to use the N-word. Now, what seems to be the reaction is Sideman has then just said he felt like that was inappropriate, and because that's inappropriate, he's quit his job. Now, I don't know about you, Sadé. For me, I'm probably the only one that sits on the fence here. I feel like that's a very, very extreme reaction to a very, very poor decision from the BBC, regardless of whether the victim wanted it or not. It's an error in judgment, but it seems like a very extreme reaction. What are your thoughts, Sadé?
I think he was probably under a lot of pressure from friends and family, saying, "Oh, so you're still going to work there? Like after what they've done?"
But why him, Sadé? There's a lot of black people who work in that industry for the BBC.
Yeah, DJ Target's
he's not the
still
leader.
there.
He's not the he's not the big name. So why him, Sadé? Why do you think?
I think because he's obviously more in touch with the youth. Like the reason why he went viral or got to where he is now is because of the people who are probably giving him those questions and putting that pressure on him. Like he didn't become famous the way that someone like DJ Target did. Off of he made a silly song about man's not hot, and that's what got him. So I feel like he feels like he's for the people and has to kind of have them on his side. Basically, what Wiley should have done. Like he's being for the people. He doesn't want to annoy anyone. It looks like, and I think the BBC, they've done a few things that are not too great. They do make amazing documentaries and really give people space to grow, but then other times they do other little things that I guess maybe are adding up. If you're looking at somebody like Dottie, she called them out as well for using the incorrect photo when Kobe died. They used LeBron James.
That's happened. But the thing is but to be fair, that has happened with a lot of like that's a common thing in the British media. The Guardian were the most recent.
Listen, we could do an entire podcast on the amount of celebrities and sports stars that have had the wrong photo used. It's beyond outrageous.
The UK, like the Guardian are the most recent ones because in the irony of them doing a story about racism in Wiley and then using a picture of Kanye, you got
to laugh. Like it's beyond ridiculous.
It's embarrassing, but that didn't garner any news attention. But I suppose, Sadé, my point really here is, did that offend you, what the BBC did?
Yeah, because I think my problem is with it is that they can make such a mistake like that, such a big platform like that can do that, but then on the other hand, let the N-word slip and there's no repercussions. And I'm just thinking, well, who was doing the checks? Whereas if you compare that to a story like someone like Reggie Yates, who had to step down from his position for using a Jewish slur, even though he did his apology and everything like that, he still had to step down. Whereas that's just a slur. They said that it might be seen as offensive. Whereas there's no might or maybe or room for doubt around the N-word. It's a hate crime. Everyone knows that it's definitely offensive.
The victim's family wanted it said.
I think that's irrelevant because I feel like if that's individual differences, I don't feel like it doesn't matter if you're okay with it. If it offends someone else, that's still a problem. That's
you could say it without saying it, couldn't you? You could say the N-word. Everyone would know what you meant. Everyone would know what you meant. End of conversation.
I didn't know about the Reggie H thing, by the way, because I remember he was like the golden boy of the BBC at one point. He was doing all their documentaries. So
do you know how many complaints the BBC actually got about it?
Yeah, 18,000 or something, or 19,000.
He made one mistake, and it was a Jewish slur, and he had to step down when so many people.
Yes.
So he said it in context, or what did he do?
It was for Top of the Pops. He's meant to be hosting it, and he said something silly like that is being managed by a fat Jewish guy. He said something like that, and they said, nope, you've got to step down. That could be seen as offensive.
What's mad is it's probably true.
I'm not even gonna lie, but it seems like the Jewish community is a little bit untouchable. That's what it seems to be coming across as, because like three people that are now Wiley, Nick Cannon, and Reggie Yates. You mentioned that and you're gone. Do you know what I mean? So,
but let's have objectivity though, Greg. It's not. There may well be other examples, but this is one that's in the media spotlight. Like there's still potentially derogatory terms about someone based on their race or their religion. And there's probably lots of other examples of that.
Yeah,
Our
get
attention's
that.
being drawn to that. Like,
I get that, but it just seems like if, like, I'm not being funny, like, and I'm saying it as a black person in it. It just seems like you can dog on us and you don't get punished as strict as you dog any other race, and it's like, yeah, that's it, you're gone. Everything like off. Like,
Well,
I'm just saying, like, that's that.
there was a guy. There was
go
an
on.
Asian actor that died, I think, a year or two ago, and they announced it in the newspaper or the BBC News, and actually they used the wrong photo for that as well. They put a different actor's on there, and the guy had actually died. And again, they apologised, but that was it. No one had to step down. No one seemed to be fired. But yeah, that again, that how can you make such a mistake? And
it's a commonality. I agree there. There's a commonality there amongst the black community. We'll say, yeah, we're often having to read. We're often having to read information and news stories about, usually not always, white stars or white presenters who say things that maybe in the past, or say things that are necessarily slightly racist, or these things where pictures are wrong, and it always seems like there never seems to be on the surface any sort of punishment. And we just read it and we say, oh, how can you believe it's happened again? It's happened again. It's happened again.
But didn't Liam Neeson, he got dropped from a film because of a comment he made when, was he late teens, early 20s?
Yeah, he said that
he was gonna kill
something
someone.
happened to him when he was quite young.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, someone he
dropped.
knew was attacked by a black person. So then he said for a period of time in his life, he walked around the streets trying to kill black people.
Yeah. Or like thought about it, didn't he? Like,
and because of that, Liam Neeson. And because of that,
Liam Neeson.
The guy from Taken. So because of that, he wasn't allowed to do his next up and coming film. He apologised. He's now in his 50s, I think. So it was like over 30 years ago. He apologised and he got dropped from the film.
I heard that.
Mm.
It is outrageous.
Now man's doing Taken 4. Let me guess, in Africa. That way it's going to be.
Yeah, but
so I suppose this goes back to the original question then. Like, do we agree that Sideman sort of died on his sword? Like, he's gone, nah, I don't. This is wrong. I don't like it. Nothing's properly been done about it, so I'm out.
But with him, I think he's probably. Some people have got such strong morals and such strong values that he probably thought, you know what, I'm not being a part of this, and he stepped out, and that's his decision, that's his choice. So some people might think, I need to earn my money.
But Danny, I think I agree with you in that respect, Danny. But he's okay. I'm going to be something very controversial here. Is I don't look at Sideman and think, you know what? When I'm thinking about Black Lives Matter and I'm thinking about the movement, he's somebody that springs to mind who's moralistically strong. Not because he's not. I'm just saying, for me, there is a massive double standard in that industry, in a sense where, you know, the things that make you famous, the things that you live and die by, are often misogynistic, you know, music. You know, in the same industry, you're allowed to call your black women and your white women hoes and bitches, but you get very, 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 very tetchy about the use of the N-word. But none of you, like, what Gravy will know this, that there's one thing that burns my soul more than anything in this world, and that is Tekashi 6ix9ine. And his use of the N-word, which just seems to just fly by, like, with no one at all have anything to say about it.
And he's a
it's
snitch.
Quite common, and it's quite common in music circles for people who are not black to use that word. And for me, the moralistic standpoint starts from there, kind of thing. Like, well, I'm not being a part of the station that plays that kind of music. I'm not going to be a part of the station or play that kind of music myself, or talk on those issues. So I think, if, you know, I agree with you, Danny, that yes, if that's how he felt and that was his moralistic standpoint and he had to walk from that, okay, that's fine. But in Gravy's words, you've got to keep the same energy then, because this same industry is what's keeping you money in your pocket. You know, he's there making diss videos at Wiley to make himself look famous when Wiley wasn't even interested in him. You know, all because he was apparently defending the honour of Dizzee Mills. Like, Dizzee Mills needs defending. You know what I mean? That's one woman who doesn't.
Yeah, she got herself.
That I've seen. And she said herself when they had the show about it, she said, "I'm not getting involved in your stupidness. Like, you're doing all this stuff to Wiley over me, which doesn't need to happen. So I'm not talking about it. I'm not getting involved in your stupidness." And that I respected. That's somebody who has a moralistic standpoint. I just think, I don't know, for me, there's something fishy about it. I can see why he did it, but it just seems like, if it just seems strange that this is the one thing that you fight for, when there's been, like Sadé said, there's been so many other instances.
Maybe it's the straw to break the camel's back.
But do you know what? Though? If he's trying to bring attention to it, he has, because it even made it on the Breakfast Club, like that whole thing, Sideman leaving BBC, like.
And I think he did need to do that, because I think regardless of if you take the fact that it's that word is linked to hate crimes and the fact that it's racist, it's still a swear word. If you just take it right back to the basics, it's a swear word. Why is it on the BBC at 10:30? Don't usually that kind of content wait until after the watershed? Like, when did we start doing that?
Yeah, agreed.
So I think even if you take that away, I think the bottom line is it's inappropriate. And even if you had permission, it was showed at 10:30
in the morning.
Yeah, as part of the news. Yeah.
Yeah, so imagine.
So that's still problematic, regardless of whether you got permission or not. That's not what the BBC are for or stand for or do.
Imagine your kid coming. What does that word mean?
What we pay our TV license for.
Oh, well, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, he has. It'd be interesting to see where he goes from here, career-wise, because we don't have an abundance of media platforms like the BBC. They're one of the biggest. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes. Maybe he'll go Capital Extra. That's probably his only other option. Or Kiss.
Or maybe he'll go to Apple, like what Dottie did.
Yeah, maybe go Apple Music, Yeah, maybe he will. May go that way. But the BBC has got to change.
Does anybody actually subscribe to Apple Music to hear? Because I take it you have to subscribe to Apple Music to hear those radio stations.
I don't subscribe to Apple Music.
I'm subscribed to Apple, but I'm not sure if you need it to listen. I'm not sure.
Randomly,
I don't listen to any of them.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Randomly, about ITV and BBC, I was talking to John's dad the other day, and he was saying when he was at school in class, he was talking to one of his friends, and a girl said, "Oh, don't talk to him. He listens to the BBC. We listen to ITV." And apparently, back in his day when he was at school, the classism was of what channel you watched. And I was like, really? I had no clue. But yeah, apparently it was a thing back when he went to school.
Where? Watching the BBC and ITV. That's when TV was the most powerful platform, though. So it probably wasn't like that.
Maybe when you only had 1 to 5.
Yeah, for real.
No, it's an interesting debate. I just feel like we could talk about it for hours. I think the Wiley stuff, the Sideman stuff, it's. I think the best thing that it's done more than anything is continue to shine a light on things that I think in the black community we've always kind of felt have always been there but have been ignored. And the Wiley thing is more difficult because he's done something that's really abhorrent, but his treatment is poor, and it puts you in a very different space, doesn't it?
I wouldn't even say his treatment's poor. I wouldn't say his treatment's poor. What my issue is, his treatment is not consistent with everyone else's punishment. That's my issue. Like, if everyone else before him had been treated the same, then I'd be like, bro, you knew what you were getting into and you done it. But I do feel like he's been made an example of, and other people haven't. Like, that's just my thing. Like, and that's why I say, moving forward, let's keep the same energy, because I don't normally jump on social media and like jump on these things. But if someone else messes up, regardless of what color they are, what sex they are, I'll be jumping. Like, remember what happened to Wiley? Do you know what I mean? Like, because I do feel like they've proper made an example of him on this point. And going on to that, have you heard that Nick Cannon is also suing Viacom for 1.5 billion for his dismissal from that network, which is interesting because obviously he done a very similar thing as Wiley, and obviously he got canned, and now he's suing that network for 1.5 million. I don't know what the grounds are for that. 1.5 billion.
His was worse than Wiley's.
But he's going for 1.5 billion, bro. So I don't know how he's gonna justify that.
Yeah, I think his was a lot worse than Wiley's. He went to town, man. He did go to town, and it's very hard to. And do you know what? There are so many parallels with Nick Cannon and
They're
Wiley
very similar
in terms of the way they've been treated.
well.
Very similar parallels, man.
Nick Cannon kept his job at Fox, though, didn't he? He was.
Yeah, he's kept. Yeah, to be fair, he has kept that. But the rest of the stuff, and I think I did see a video with DC Young Fly in it recently, and yeah, I did feel sorry for them because they were like, he was sat there with the rest of the Wild and Out guys, and they were like chatting whether they felt that was the end of it. They did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. They've turned up on that show, earned a living, and hundreds of people have just lost their job.
Yeah, but again,
and that's where it starts to become unfair.
Again, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it seems like Nick Cannon didn't have the rights to that show, even though he created it. It wasn't his show. Like, he may have been like 40% on it, but ultimately, if he owned the rights to that show, he could have just taken it to another network. But he doesn't.
But why didn't? But my issue is why they've not just continued it?
Because it was Nick Cannon's Wiling Out, wasn't it? It wasn't just Wiling Out; it was his. It was all based off Nick Cannon.
They've done it all the time. They did it with 3.5 Men. You just get somebody else more famous, and you carry it on. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I just that one leaves a bitter taste in my mouth as well. The Nick Cannon one. That seems also to be quite a difficult one to see. But before we move on to our top albums, anybody want to touch on the Dawn Butler issues that has happened? Anybody know much about that?
Yeah, she's abused her position. And what the reason I say that is everyone has the right to film the police or whatever whenever they get stopped. That's fine. There's no issue with that. But it's like she had made a point herself, judge, jury, and executioner, without any independent investigation into what had happened. So she was stopped in her car in Hackney. Police spoke to her, and she instantly started recording it, and then she tweeted saying that she'd been stopped and accused the police of racially profiling her. Now, the investigation the police conducted said that what had actually happened was there'd been a human error, as you can understand. How many times are you going to type something and made a mistake? They typed the registration number as part of a proactive patrol into the VRM recognition system, and it'd come back as a slightly different vehicle. And that vehicle happened to have a driver known to police. So instantly, that makes a bit more sense than the story that she was stopped because she was black. They've stopped and spoken to her, and then she's gone on her merry way. She's since spoken to the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, who said that she had no issue with the manner and professionalism of the stop. So the way that the officer spoke to her, dealt with her, she had no issue with that at all. But then she's obviously come out, and stories have come out saying that she was racially profiled and why she stopped. Now, all the evidence would seem to be to the contrary. And the reason why I suggest that she's abusing her position is she's obviously been upset that she stopped, or she's used the opportunity that she's been stopped to try and gain some clout for herself, or to gain attention to the matter. Now, that's all very well and good. If something bad has happened, absolutely people need to be held to account and things need to change. But if someone's actually doing their job and makes an innocent mistake and you accuse them of being racist, that's quite a serious accusation, in my opinion. And I think she needs to have a look at herself as to, is that the sort of message that she wants to portray, and is that how she wants to accurately reflect her constituency?
She actually just picked the wrong fight. It was a battle that didn't need to take place. Like, I have to say, on record,
I'm going to disagree with you in this one. Sorry,
I'm going to go on record and say,
go on.
Another thing I got with these whole putting videos on, and I've said it before on previous podcasts, I understand that there's a limit on how long you can put, but if you're going to put a 30-second clip, also add a link somewhere else saying this is the full video. Like, don't be putting 30-second clips. I feel the officers spoke to her very respectfully, and I know, playing devil's advocate, that most people would probably say, well, ain't it convenient a number plate went in wrong? It does happen.
How often do you text something and you make a mistake? Like, it happens all the time.
I think for me, the reason why I disagree with you on all of this is because, yes, we can look at the human error aspect, but I've never come across any scenario that's made the news where a black individual has been stopped for a particular reason, and there's been a full admission that that shouldn't have happened. I feel like, yes. So what we're trying to say happened here is her license plate was put through this recognition system. Some human error occurred, and either what's come up is the car or the driver, which is come up as some issue, and they've related that back to her. And I think at some point there should have been some common sense prevailed in all of that to make the suggestion that there was probably no link between, unless it was another black female driver that was known to police that came up, which is completely random and you can't help that. That's different. But I just think that these things, the weeks before that, we had the same thing with the Linford Christie athletes, which was we never really heard much more about that. And that was very similar. There was some suggestion that they were driving erratically or evading police as they drove by. Again, that's turned out to be nothing again. And I think these things happen, and admittedly it's the ones that make the news, and I'm aware of that. But the things that we see when these things happen often always turn out to be a bit of nothing, and there's been a mistake. I just feel like I don't necessarily think that. I don't know enough about the information to say she was targeted, she wasn't targeted. I just kind of feel like we've heard this before, and I'm less inclined to accept that as human error because we've heard this before. In the same way, we had a police officer who was kneeling on someone's neck the other day. That's never been taught before. We've seen these things before. I would never generalize the police as a whole to say, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that they do. I just kind of feel that this is a bit fishy for me. It's not as plain sailing as I've put in the wrong license plate. I mean, yourself, if you're going to do that sort of thing and you put a license plate in and it goes in wrong, there has to be so many coincidental things to happen to link all of that information to that one woman to then feel the need to question her further.
I was just saying on the Linford Christie athletes, like that was reviewed by an independent panel, and they reviewed the body worn footage, and they decided that everything was fine with that. So that's, for me, you could say that's convenient, but there's very many occasions where police have an independent review, and if something is wrong, they do get held to account. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, like the common sense appeal, and it probably was a sense that as soon as they realised that everything was fine and they completed the checks that they would do when they stop any vehicle, which happens thousands of times a day up and down the country, that they said you're free to go. Thank you for your time, and I think that's why she hasn't put a complaint in, because, as you're saying, if she had thought it was as fishy as it may well appear that there's been more than one incident in a short space of time, she would have just put a complaint in. It would be getting reviewed independently, but such is her comfortability with how it was actually conducted, she's decided not to take it any further, which for a woman in her power and position would know that if she wanted to cause serious change and she felt there was a need to do so, she could have done.
I don't know. I think I suppose Sadé and Danny can pop in here and give their views on what they've seen.
For me, I don't know. I was kind of like you said, Greg. I think you said earlier that you're kind of waiting for a bit more footage, because after the whole, I know it's unrelated, but after the whole Jesse Smollett or Smollett, however you say his surname, after that incident, I really withhold judgment, and I kind of however you say
that was
it.
horrific, wasn't it?
Yeah, I kind of wait a little bit to see a bit more, because you jump on the bandwagon too quickly and then you look stupid after. And I just, I don't know. I wonder if I didn't like the fact that she kind of promoted it before releasing the footage. I didn't like that her first tweet about just been stopped by police, more info coming soon. I didn't like that.
Like, what is your motive there?
Yeah, it kind of made me feel away.
She's like she's about to drop some banging mixtape. Yeah,
that's something Piers Morgan would do.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. I wish she would have just put the video out and let people make their own opinions of it, or if it was something to see around it, then kind of doing promo on a video. When do you do that? And I wish she would have provided a bit more context.
Sade's made a valid point. That's a valid point, Charlie, because I feel someone in her position, she should have dealt with it properly with the police, and then afterwards, then done it. Like, she carried on like she was some vlogger.
Yeah,
which
be
was
professional.
totally, yeah. That's Charlie made a good point. Like, I
Because
just
I
feel
think
like
like
she could have
public
handled that better.
opinion, public opinion changes so quickly, and I feel like you've got to be sure, especially like you said, her position. She's got to be sure in what she's doing, and I know in this like climate with the BLM movement and things like that, you just kind of got to be. Was it something that she was doing to jump on the bandwagon, or was it really something to see here? Like, I'm really torn on where I sit on all this.
She used to be the shadow secretary for State of Women and Equalities. Where was the equality in what she did? Like, be objective. Like, if you got a problem, complain about it properly through the proper channels. She didn't do any of that.
It seems like she just got a little bit excited with social media and just decided that I'm gonna.
Because I wonder if she could have done it properly, like you say, and then if she didn't like the result, then gone to social media and said, "Look, guys, I did this, this, and this, and it still didn't work." Yeah. But again, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what that felt like for her in that situation. So I'm not going to say, "Oh no, this is what you should do," but I don't know.
It also
sounded a bit rash.
She's going to have the information, isn't she?
It also sort of
know how to do it properly.
What kind of day you've had. If she's had a really bad day and this has happened, and she might have acted in a way that isn't her normal self, whereas if she's had a good day that day, might have acted differently. It kind of depends on the day, the mood. You just you don't know the ins and outs, and it's hard to comment when you. If
you're going to film something, you already feel a certain way about it, don't you? You're expecting or hoping something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now that's either really sad or it's really aggressive. Like, someone puts a camera in your face, starts filming you whilst you're trying to do your job, like, it could make you feel a certain way. But it seems like whoever dealt with it has dealt with it really well.
Well, on the flip side, they've got cameras in everyone else's faces. Like, police walking around cameras as well. So it's a bit like, well, you've got a camera, I'll get my camera out. So,
but I don't think no one respects. I don't think no one respects the police anymore. When I was growing up as a kid, we were petrified of the police. They were someone to be afraid of. You always said hello when they was walking down the road. Now it's like there's no respect.
Police got cameras, body-worn cameras, because it helps. I don't know the official figures, but it helps with prosecution. Like, when that's been present, it's helped with charging standards, and it's also reduced civil complaints by about 2/3. Which, when you think how many there are, like, it's just frivolous complaints where people would say that police have stolen this or beaten me or something. They check the camera and they turn out to be lying.
No, Chris, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying you're saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. On
the opposite side, you're saying to someone that's never had a criminal record before, well, you've got shoving a camera in my face, recording what I'm saying and doing. So, do you know what I mean? I'm just saying, I'm devil's advocate.
I just think the whole stopping people in their vehicles in the black community is a very sensitive topic at the moment, because the reason why I say that, and the reason why for me I look at that and think, removed from the whole concept of how she dealt with it, blah blah blah, for me the sticking point is this concept of human error. And I just kind of feel like, look, human error, fine, but there's a bit of common sense that needs to prevail here. And I'm not sure that necessarily happened, because for me, what I hear a lot of and what I see a lot of is examples of, have you heard of, what's his name? Sace Holmes Lewis. That's his Sace Holmes Lewis. He was he's like a community mentor in East London. I think he actually was a coach for Jadon Sancho at one point.
Wow.
And he's one of these guys that does a lot within the community. And he was on the news quite often during lockdown, because during lockdown, he was continuing to like drive around and provide food and provisions for people within his community. And he had been stopped 4 times within that period and searched under the Misuse of Drugs Act 4 separate times. And actually the 4th time, he recorded it. And it made like Good Morning Britain and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I first saw him. And I started following him on LinkedIn. And I think it's so much so that he then offered to help the Met to basically provide a course for up and coming police officers about how they interact with the black community. I think the Met agreed to that, and I think he started doing that now, which is quite positive.
Right,
Yeah.
That doesn't
But
sound
there are lots of
amazing.
examples. There are lots of examples of that happen, which make these sorts of things, when you hear them, it makes it a little bit harder to believe when actually it could have just been a genuine error.
right,
I
Al,
don't
I
So it
see
hear
makes it a
a
that,
lot
problem
harder
with
to swallow.
recording.
but because it's touchy,
Yeah, go on.
I said because it's touchy, like doesn't mean we can't, like it can't be done. Like crime still happens in every community, so just because it's a bit sensitive that we can't be stopping it doesn't mean that the police are not going to do it. It still needs to be
No,
done.
that's not what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's sensitive in the sense that when we, as a community, hear these stories, we find it very hard to accept when someone's trying to say it's just human error. That's why it happened. Because you'll ask him, says Holmes Lewis, and he'll tell you 4 times during lockdown when I've got a car full of food and a car full of provisions to provide people in my community when I'm risking my own life, and to be stopped 4 times under the Misuse of Drugs Act is not acceptable. So what I'm trying to say to you is I'm not saying that people shouldn't be stopped. I'm not saying there shouldn't be presence of police officers in an area where there is high crime. What I'm saying is, as the average black man or woman, when you're hearing these stories, it's a lot harder to accept if it's genuinely down to human error. It's a lot harder to accept. It's a lot harder to hear it when we're seeing the visuals, which are different in different cases. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think you might be well right that it's down to human error, and it might be well right that they were dealt with perfectly and all
Oh,
that kind of
absolutely.
stuff.
And
But
there's
we're
many
hearing it.
examples, and
We're hearing it
just
too.
like you said, where they've got it wrong. But I don't think that's one of these times. And I think
Yeah, it
the
might not be.
experience of things going wrong in the past has been used prematurely without all the facts being obvious, or using emotive reasons for doing it. And I don't think that is the right thing to be doing as a serving member of parliament.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think just back to what I was saying to you, Greg, it's less about not doing it because Danny is right. The respect for the police is not there, and I think having known people who work for the police, it's probably made me more empathetic for the police's plight. But equally, like I said, there are many a story of people who are racially profiled when they're stopped and had felt. I think there was equally when I watched the story about Stace Home Lewis, there was another guy, I forget his name, I'll find it and put it in the show notes. It was an Asian guy who was basically reporting for GMB for the same thing. He was basically saying, "Yeah, I've been stopped quite a few times for this issue," and the irony of it was he was given an interview to ITV about being racially profiled and stopped during lockdown. And on his way home from the interview, he got stopped by the police and he got pulled over and they smashed his window and they ripped him out the car because he was filming it at the time. And when you see those kind of visuals, and I get propaganda and I get all that kind of stuff, but when you see those kind of visuals and then someone turns around and says, "Yeah, we stopped someone, but it was a mistake," it makes it a lot harder to swallow, which is the point I was making.
yeah, no, I can agree with that. And I think you have to wonder, did they only say it was a mistake because of the footage? Because it was recorded and it went viral.
So
Possibly, yeah.
and I think we've got to see it from both sides from that point. But right, I think we've definitely talked about that for an hour. I think we should move on to the fun part of this pod, which
Something
is
lighter.
our top 5 albums. So I had a whole script. I was going to go through the tracks. I was going to go through all of the emotive language that was referenced into those albums, but I think time has pushed us too far forward. So I'm going to allow Danny to go up first, and just let us marvel in your choice of 5, and a bit of an understanding to how you got there.
So I'm more of a singles. I really like my singles, and I like merging all my singles together to create my own album for my car. So of all the albums that I've listened to over the years, these are probably my favourite. So obviously I love Ed Sheeran. I loved his Divide in 2017 and his 6 collabs from 2019. I love the majority of the songs on both of those albums. I love Usher's 8701. That reminds me of when I first started working. I was 16, 17. So whenever I listen to that, it's very like brings back amazing memories. I also love.
Were you on the pod when Chris was talking about Usher albums?
No, I don't.
Were
What was you saying?
Yeah, we weren't recording them. We weren't recording.
Yeah, you slated your 8701.
This is a lie. It's
Slated
a lie.
No, that was me.
A lie.
I love that whole album. I also loved his Confessions album. Yeah,
Ooh, that's more like it.
but do you know what? The Confessions album, I was splitting up with my first boyfriend at the time, and every song just felt like it related to what we were going through. So
Confessions was a big boy album.
yeah, it was, and the fact that it related to my first boyfriend's obviously like, that clearly ended terribly. So yeah, but yeah, no. So every time I hear that, it kind of brings me back to those days, but not in a bad way. Like I really like the album. I love Donnell Jones' My Heart. That was a really good one years way back when. I loved Neo Because of You. I quite liked. I had a bit of an obsession with Neo at one point. I liked a lot of his music. And randomly, when I first started my work, they used to play Tracy Chapman, who I used to think was a guy back then. Obviously, he's not. He's not. But I loved a lot of her tracks, and also Lenny Kravitz. So they were like I've got a bit of a wide. I like a lot of rock, indie, pop, garage, house. But so yeah, I used to like merging all those sort of tracks together in one album. But if I had to pick any, those would be my favourite albums.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what direction you were going to go in, but I'm intrigued and definitely impressed in your Usher choices. Definitely, that I can identify with you. So yes, Danny will send that to me, and I'll put them in the show notes for people to see. Chris, you're up next.
Right. Okay. So you're making me whittle down my choices. Wow, this is difficult.
Let's have a bit of a background to how you got to where you got.
So much like Danny, like I've got quite an eclectic choice. So like I will pick out songs that I like. I think the days where we would just go and buy an album and just listen to it from head to toe and then pick our favourite tracks out of it are long gone. Like we can just download like single tracks from an album and just pick our favourites. I think that's kind of. And sometimes people will bring out an EP with like 5 tracks on it rather than do an album, and they'll do like 2 or 3 of them. So picking an actual album's a lot more difficult in terms of like recent music. But for me, I picked albums where I rated a large proportion of the tracks on it. They're not necessarily even my favourite artist, but when I looked at the volume of work, I was like, yeah, you look through that list, there's some big tracks on there. Right, you could say this is a bit basic, but Drake's Take Care, massive album, absolutely massive album. Like you look through that list, there are so many tracks on that you could listen to now, and they'll still sound good. But Take Care was 9 years ago, and you could listen to tracks now and they'd still sound good now. It's a sign of good music is where it does the test of time. What else did I pick? Yeah, College Dropout. Kanye, that was 2004. That's 16 years ago. Yeah, like a lot. Again, lots of tracks on that. I'm a big fan of. 50, Get Rich or Die Trying. I mean, you could say it's a bit obvious, but it's obvious because exactly that. It's so good. Like, there's a reason it sold so many so quickly. Yeah, we sort of, you very quickly touched on him earlier, but growing up for me, Craig David, Born to Do It, that was a big album. Yeah. Sort of like
the one with the headphones on.
Yeah, with the bronze background. Yeah, like that was a big album. That was sort of like his crossover from garage to R&B. Really enjoyed that, and again, there's still tracks on that you listen to now and think, yeah, big fan of that.
He is so underrated. He is a national treasure, that guy. when he was doing his thing. There was nothing. When he was doing his thing, there was no one
Yeah,
better.
he more or less created an opportunity for so many artists to come through. Because before it was all like Greg's favourite artists like S Club and Blue and things like that. So, and finally, I think if we're gonna give a nice rounded balance, I'd probably go with Boy in the Corner, Dizzee Rascal. Again, because like that was another monster album, and that sort of brought like the genre of music like upper level, better than Wiley's done. Yeah, said what I said. That's my 5.
Interesting, very interesting. I've got to say, all of those albums I'm a big fan of. So, I mean, that's an interesting choice. I like it. Sadé, what's your top 5?
We're gonna have to agree with Chris. Definitely had Kanye West College Dropout on there.
Yeah.
Even though it's one that's probably came out when I was really, really young, but appreciate it later, kind of when you get a bit older, or maybe it's from people in the house playing it, so you end up liking it. Then I had Mariah Carey, Emancipation of Mimi, because I feel like that's had a lot of her big hits on there.
That's the one with like Say Something.
Yeah, Say Something, We Belong Together, It's Like That.
Yeah.
Like loads of her
It's
songs
Like
on there.
Yes. Yes, great album.
And then I had to put in Destiny's Child for the culture. It didn't sit right with me for Beyonce to not make the list somehow. So I put in I put in Survivor album. I had like a lot of their big hits, Survivor, Independent Woman, Dangerously in Love, like it was a big album. And then the last one would have been The Dream, Love Hate. And I think that I did this based off of albums that I could listen to without wanting to skip too many of them. So yeah, that's the top 5. Summer Walker's EP almost made it, Life on Earth, but it's only 5 songs, so she couldn't make the list. But yeah, that's them.
Well, again, I'm a big fan of all of those, so I'm pleasantly happy with those choices.
Alistair, is all yours Kanye West?
You'll be surprised to know. Actually, I had to add a Kanye West one at the end. I'd forgotten. I'd actually forgotten. So, first one is D'Angelo Brown Sugar. That came out in '95. So I was very early into secondary school. Then it was my first year of secondary school. And it was just 10 tracks of just really, really cool, really soulful R&B. And again, something that I could just listen to from one end to the other. So that's one of them. The next one was a year earlier. Was Aaliyah, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. For me, sort of that R&B swing vibe, 90s R&B is something that Grave and I hold quite dear in our hearts. And that Aaliyah's first album, we had Back and Forth, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, all those R&B swing hits I loved dearly. The next one is the first Kanye West one, actually, and I didn't go for College Dropout because College Dropout was definitely a fantastic album, but I actually went for Late Registration.
Right.
Mainly because after hearing College Dropout, I was so gassed when I knew Late Registration was coming out, and I remember driving to get it in Romford. I just finished uni, went to Romford, went and got it on CD, put it in my car, and at the very first track, it was an interlude, a Bernie Mac interlude, I think, and it straight went into a track called Heard 'Em Say with Adam Levine. I thought, right,
big track.
This album, look, Heard 'Em Say, Touch the Sky, Gold Digger, Drive Slow, Diamonds Are Forever, Hey Mama, Celebration. It was, no more can be said about that. And then the next one is which is a crossover, which was Drake, Take Care. Because again, after hearing Thank Me Later, which was a great album, I was just so gassed to hear Take Care. And when Take Care came out,
huge.
My goodness! I'm a big person that's into intros, and Drake is, famously does great intros, and he had that first one, Over My Dead Body, that just set the tempo for that album. And then, you know, headlines, True Love, Take Care, Marvin's Room, Underground Kings. We could be here all night for that. And then the last one, which I believe is probably the best debut album from any rapper, is Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, like Mad City. And anybody who's haven't listened to that, it's basically a monologue from beginning to end. It's a whole story of one day in Compton, and each song is a part of that story. And for a debut artist, was sensational. And the one that didn't make it, and I have to put it in there because it's been so pivotal for me, is Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. That was, for me, on par with the Aaliyah album, and I couldn't decide which one to put in. So I had to put I put Back to Black in there as my number 6. So didn't make the top 5, but definitely got an honourable mention from me. And in the show notes, I've got about another 67 honourable mentions. So if you guys have got any honourable mentions, let me know, and we will stick it in the show notes. All right, so that's my top 5 / top 6. Last but not least, Gravy.
Well,
let's hear your.
I see how
5.
all you guys have like. Danny had about 8. Yeah, Chris had about 8. I'm gonna stick mine to only 5.
I said 5.
Yeah,
Still.
I'm only gonna do 5 of mine, and I'll put my rest in my honourable mentions. So I've gone Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel, because those that know me know that I'm a big Bobby Brown fan. He was my idol growing up, and that was the first album that I got on vinyl, and that too many tunes on that. Obviously the title track, Don't Be Cruel, My Prerogative, Roni, big album for me. Another album, my number, these are not in any order, but I've just gone 1, 2, so I'll do it in that. Number 2 is Jay-Z Blueprint. That album for me is just for a rap album.
Yes,
that's just
yes.
It's got Girls, 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 that Boy White anthem. Plus, part 2 is a banger. There's too many tracks on that album. Song Cry, like that album for me is one of my favorites. Number 3, which is quite common that everyone's got this album, is Usher Confessions. Big album. Similar to Danny, I was actually going for a breakup when this album come in, but it was a happy breakup for me on my term anyway. But yeah, that album was good. Number 4,
Let It Burn.
Let It Burn. Funny, I've got a funny story about that. That's for a whole nother show, and it ain't what you guys are thinking. But number 4, Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Like, if anybody does one and out albums, it's that album, innit? She ain't done another album since, but big album. And then last but not least, and I looked at my list and realised that it had nothing from the UK, and I just had to put this album in because it was big at the time for the scene. The first urban act to win a Mercury Prize award. So it's Dizzee Rascal, Boy in the Corner. Like, big album. Obviously, I know Chris doesn't like it because at school Chris was called Jezebel. But yeah, big boy album. Like, for me.
Who wants to tell him?
Oh, do you know what? I think do you know what? I think man needs to hold a strike for that, you know. Like, man generally called you some biblical name.
Childish.
So
childish.
Listen, he won't have this energy face to face.
Hold on. You guys have been sending for me for the whole thing, yeah? And as soon as I come out, like, anyway, ow.
Yeah, as soon as you come out, it gets returned to sender.
Ow. I have got a few.
And plus, that was on Chris's
I've got a few listener ones to shout out as well. So I did get my brother to do one, and he had. So big shout to DJ D Jones. He done Usher Confessions, Mario, Fabulous Street Dreams, Biggie Smalls Life After Death, and Pretty Ricky Blue Stars.
I think he's my brother and not your brother.
I've also got
I think me and him vibed on those albums.
My sister Misha, so big shout to Mishmash. She had her. She had Destiny's Child, Writing on the Wall. Sorry, I'm doing this in the dark. Scissor. Oh no, sorry, that's not the name of the album, is it? Yeah, Control. Yeah,
Control. Not Control. Brilliant album.
Then she had Rihanna, Loud, and then Usher Confessions. Let me grab my phone because I've had a few people message in. So
Usher Confessions is very popular.
yeah,
I was
Usher
ringing
Confessions
tonight.
is on a lot of people's.
That was my list as
Yeah,
well.
has
A lot of
Yeah.
people have got
I think that's been the most popular
Usher
one.
Confessions on their list. Linty Graham had Snoop Dogg, Doggy
Doggy
Style. Sorry, my phone is now decided to be real slow, Al. So let me.
Is it bad that everyone likes? Is it really bad that everyone likes Confessions and can probably relate to that album?
Do you know what I think? Do you know what I think it is, Danny? Because I didn't. I said I was going through a breakup at the time. I just felt like clearly he had gone quiet for a while, and when he brought out Confessions, it was such a quality
bad.
body of work that everyone was like, "Oh my god, like this is great. Have you heard it? Have you heard it?" And everyone was just passing it around. Everyone was listening to it, and I think like a bit like Adele, he must have just gone quiet for a while, and he just came out with, and that's arguably.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have my way over Confessions personally.
Skepta ain't dumped
My
it
way
yet,
was-
so
Nah,
stand
for
by.
me,
But
I think it was for Confessions.
yeah.
Oh, go on,
Nah,
babe.
for me, Confessions just had club bangers, the slow jams. It was a complete album for me. The complete album, like.
I think
It
for
was.
Confessions at the time, no one was really doing like storytelling albums. So I think that's what kind of made
not
it
like that.
like a good thing as
Not
well.
to that quality. Not to that quality
That's
anyway.
quality.
Yeah.
Do you know what's
It
mad?
was a solid album.
Like, so the ones that didn't make my list are like best of ones. So I had like Stevie Wonder's best hits, like UB40, Bob Marley, Biggie, Destiny's Child, Michael Jackson. None of us picked any of their albums for our top 5.
Don't worry, man. We haven't done our honourable mentions, man. Have you got Sadé, have you got any other honourable mentions that didn't make the list?
It was going to be Summer Walker that almost made the list,
Oh, yeah.
and then it would have been
You said that.
Drake. Was it Nothing Was the Same?
You know what? I'm
man,
upset.
That
I'm
was
upset
the
that I
one,
didn't
yeah.
put a Drake
You're a
in
woman
mine,
after
but
my own
Drake
heart,
was
man.
on my minimal mentions.
You're a woman after
Bruv,
my
she's
own
I was
raised-
going to
heart.
put
she's
Oasis.
raised-
Nothing was the same. Sorry,
Oasis.
go on.
No such a tune.
Oasis Wonderwall is one of my favourite songs, like repping the Northern lot. Yeah, but other than that, and Craig David, another one, classic. But yeah.
Well, I've got another person that emailed us in. So he hasn't put the artist, so I don't know which album this has come from, but it's got Legend. I don't know whose album that is off the top of my head.
John Legend.
No, it just says Legend, and then Watch the Throne, which I know
Yeah, but it might
is
that
Jay-Z, Kanye. Doggy Style, which is Snoop.
Yeah.
Thriller, which is Michael Jackson. And then Labor of Love. I don't know whose album that is because he hasn't put the artist. But then another person has put Nas, Illmatic, Tupac, All Eyes on Me, the Fuji Law,
Legend was by Bob Marley.
the Fuji Law album, and the controversial,
Yeah,
controversial one, R.Kelly 12 Play. But
R.Kelly, I knew.
No.
I was going to say R. Kelly did make really good music and albums, but
yeah,
we
can't put him in the top 5 now, man.
I had to delete him from my top 5.
he's
Yeah.
crossed out.
I definitely can't.
Gravy, did you have any honourable mentions?
I did. I had Kano's
Home
first
Sweet Home.
album was there.
Home Sweet Home.
Home Sweet Home. Yeah. Drake's first 3 albums, all 3. And then Biggie Life After Death was my honourable mentions.
What a guy.
I'll
Team
give my
Biggie.
honourable mentions because I wrote them down and I had to delete them to get to the 5. So it's a bit of a list. So I already said Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. I had Tribe Called Quest, Love Movement. I had Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style. I had Q-Tip, The Renaissance. I had Usher, Confessions. I had this one, Burn Me to Take It Out, because you'll know this, Gravy. I had Miguel, Kaleidoscope Dreams. That Burn Me to Take That Out.
album.
That for me is, I just couldn't put it in there.
You pushed that album on me.
That was a hard one to get rid of.
Adorn is still massive.
Kaleidoscope Dreams is a great album.
Yeah, Adorn is our version of Marvin Gaye's
Still
Let's Get It
huge.
On.
And then I had both of Travis Scott's first and second album. So you had Rodeo and Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight. I had MJ, Dangerous, and similar to Sadé, I had Drake, Nothing Was the Same. And that was another one that I was struggling to put in instead of Take Care. And I just thought, if I put that in and not Take Care, then I'll be doing Drake a disservice. But Nothing Was the Same is a great album. So yeah.
Well, I'm just letting you guys know that maybe by our December pod, I'm going to be doing album of the year. So get them right in now. Top 5 album of the year this year. I already have a list of 3 albums already, so I'm saying I'm already ahead of the game. So you guys will really prepare for that one. But the Otto family we've got a party coming up. We've got a party coming up on the 29th and 30th. You can buy your tickets on Design My Night. It's £5. We are doing a carnival special weekend. We're taking over 2 adventure bars, Clapham Junction, Clapham High Street. Yours truly will be providing the music. We go from 1 till 4. It's 3 hours of 2-for-1 cocktails, but you can have whatever you want. But we have cocktail special offers. And if you want to follow me on the Instagram, it is DJ_goldenchild. Don't forget to follow all our socials, like and subscribe if you're watching this on the YouTube. And please give us a follow if you are following us on Apple Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. And Al, we're still running a competition as well. So we still have a competition, a set of SETT Surf stuff that we need to give away, a goodie bag from SETT Surf. So we'll put another question up in the comments, in the show notes, and we select a winner when someone answers
I've got the question
correctly.
already. So you need to listen carefully. You need to go back and check it. What was the controversial R.Kelly album that had to be banned from the list? I heard it.
Al, you done that was a good one.
I heard it because it was. I'm not going to comment on it. It was an album. So yes, if you know what that was, then post it on one of the socials, email it to us, whatever. We pick it up. You win some SETT Surf goodies. So all that's left is for me to thank the team of the podcast. Thank you very much, Danny.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Cheers, guys.
Everybody give a big round of applause for Sadé on her debut. Well done, Sadé.
Thanks for letting me join.
I ain't calling her back.
That's fine. I don't want to come back.
It's been a great addition. And finally, as RB Leipzig have just taken the lead, 2-1.
Oh man, I've got a lag.
Big thank you to Gravy.
Uh-oh. Peace.
Right, thanks for listening, everybody. Peace out.
Boom.